old time rock and roll. Kind of like them days of old. It's that old time rock and roll. And that is live on the air, folks. That's gonna be awesome. Welcome, Dan. How you doing? There we go. Hit the mute button. The way it's supposed to do. All right. How you doing, man?
Hi, I'm doing well. Feeling a little bit guilty for having you up so early, but
Look, shit happens. So, folks, we're just gonna make it. So, there's a difference between EST and EED. So there is a little difference. There's a touch of difference there, but that's okay. Honestly, to be honest with you, I needed the sleep. I was exhausted. I was exhausted anyway when I crashed and burned for this. So the nap was greatly appreciated. So I got it. I'm going to be up. I'll do some little work. I'll go back. I'll finish my sleep and go on with my day. It's all good, brother. So how have you been?
I've been well. It's been. I was thinking, has it been 1 year since we last
Very
been
close. Very close.
Yeah. Been really well. My hair has grown.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah.
My hair hasn't grown quite as much, but still, it's. I mean, yeah, it's there.
Yeah,
I'm just happy. I'm 42 and I can still grow hair. So not really. Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take it.
No, for me, like as soon as I was out of the army, my best, like I wanted to grow it back. So this was priority number one, and of course get back into making comics. So we have 2 out of 2 in this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
yep.
So no, like it's cool. Like so far, my favorite book this year has been Ultimate Spider-Man. And that sounds really lame, but it's the truth. It's actually been really good.
Which one?
The new Ultimate Spider-Man.
I haven't checked it out.
Yeah.
My reading list has digressed in either going retro,
Okay.
not retro. What is the correct word for Dragon Ball? Is it
manga?
Retro?
Manga. You can say retro. Retro works stuff for Dragon Ball. Yeah.
Yeah. Either this or reading some 1980s and 90s comics, but like the Dark Horse Image one. I went deep into the Usagi Yojimbo saga.
That's a great book. That's a great book.
Yeah.
You want to hear something really cool?
Yep.
Stan Sakai was my first big Comic Can review.
Really?
Wow. Yeah, no, so yeah, seriously, like back in like early 2000, I actually called. He was my first phone interview ever, like back in the early 2000s. So yeah, he's really cool. Like he's really cool. I still read the odd Usagi Yojimbo every so often. I don't read them all the time anymore, but no, it's a really good book. It is very Stan, like honestly, and I say that in like the best possible way. He's very passionate about that era in history, and it comes across each and every arc he does.
No, for me, I'm really hyped because this year in Greece we have a major convention, and what's the name of the creator of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Kevin Eastman.
Yeah, Kevin Eastman is coming. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm really brushing up on the original, like on the original issues, the one with the little not the shredder bots, but the gnawing ones. You know what?
The mousers. Yes.
Yeah,
and
the
also,
mousers. Yeah. So, yeah, I've been reading them a lot to get references for a new comic.
So I love the old Ninja Turtles. I love the old look. The fact that none of them had colored headbands. They all wore the same red. I love that old school look, man. I really did. They did a so Eastman still does the current Ninja Turtles comic. He has a little bit of a hand in each of these issues still to this day. So there was one annual they did about 2 years ago. It was the old school look. I popped. I legitimately was so like, yes, I got to see it. I'm looking for like the book I'm really looking forward to actually next month. They're actually coming up actually this week. Last Ronin 2. Yeah, that book I am so excited for because that is a very cool little universe that they've created, and I am very stoked to see where that goes.
Yeah, it was wholesome, like Is it out of the spoiler box? Like,
No,
can we
no, no,
talk?
no. Listen, dude. Okay, to
No.
anybody that watches or listens to this show, whenever you watch or listen to this show, we are spoiling Last Ronin. Deal with it. Okay, done.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the best things I actually I like when it comes to narrative building is when it comes full circle. But it has like it comes full circle, but has a significant change in
Mhm.
that sense. And you know exactly what I'm talking about because the whole idea is that Last Ronin deals with a revenge story trope. Like, okay, so there's only one Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle left, and it's
Mhm.
Mikey, and he has to deal with the fact that he's left a book that says no peace, like
Yeah.
no peace, and then he's trying to deal with it, and he's training, he's becoming stronger, he's becoming more potent into what he wrote, and at the end you have a subtle flip, like the flip of a switch, and then everything changes perspective for him. And I won't spoil the exact end of the book, but you know exactly what, like the moment I'm talking about. It was a moment for us that says like, okay, we've been through this, we have accepted the journey of the character.
To me, I thought he was the correct choice to be the last Ronin.
Oh
Because
yeah.
here's the other thing. Because Raph and Leo would have been boring,
Mm,
right? Donatello would have been also interesting, but I think Mikey's the best choice because of the four turtles, he's the kindest, right? And of the four of them, he's the kindest of the four. And so to put him in that situation where he's guilty about being the last one standing in his whole family, and knowing that he is totally at peace with not walking away from
mm,
what's to come. It's a very it shows what happens when a kind person is exposed to a very hostile circumstance,
mm,
and what he becomes as a result of it is you're sad for him. Like I honestly was sad for Mike. Like when I realized like what he was carrying, because it wasn't just. So I'm going to spoil this little piece of it. So when he's looking at his conscience, they are all his dead brothers, and like Leo, Donnie. He's still talking to them,
mm,
and it's a very like it is very sad in one way because he was, again, he's the kindest, and the guys that balanced him, that kept him who he was, aren't really, they're there but they're not really there anymore. And it was like I actually felt for him. And when he goes through the arc of where he's supposed to go and what he becomes, yeah, it's there's a bit of a revenge story to it, but it's also, I thought, big reason why it worked, it's also a love story. And it's also, in an odd way, it's a hopeful story too, because you meet April's kids, you meet kind of like the next. That's why Last Ronin 2 is so exciting, folks, because it's the next. What's the legacy of the turtles themselves?
yeah, the
That is
next.
a very that's a very interesting thing, and I'm really excited for this. So this is the book I've been the most excited to read, because like the first Last Ronin was so damn good. Like that was a great book. So yeah, so that was my favorite book 2 years ago. So so
But you also have the, just like to sum it up, when you think of them as like, because it's in the name, it's Teenage Mutant
yeah.
Ninja Turtles. But the three of them, Raphael and Leo especially, they have their characters cut out for them, don't they? They are not the most mature ones, but they do have they are in this, you know, teenage state that you can see what kind of adults they would be. For Mike, you can't really see it because he was always supposed he wasn't supposed to be the goofball, but he was supposed to be the immature one. Like you said, he's the kind one. He's in the early stages of teenagehood. If you think about it, because he's the one, it's not just it's about that he likes skate or comics or superheroes or whatever. It's that he is a blank canvas as to what he can be as an adult. Because Leo will be the leader, or will be have a leading position. Raph will be much more of a hands-on guy. Donatello has a specific focus on technology, and he's brainy. But Mike is like he's there to connect everyone together, and you can see that he has all of the room to grow and go wherever he likes, and that's why the last running works with Mike, like you said.
Oh, well, there's another reason too. I would make an argument with you that Michelangelo's the wisest of the four turtles, and because here's why. He's the one of the four of them. He's the one most prone to listen. Donatello's
Mm,
smart, intelligent. Like he'll analyze things, and he's really good. Leo isn't, and Raph aren't pushovers, but what they tend to do is Leo and Raph, in their own ways, tend to take responsibility for everything. Right? Leo's feeling he's the leader of the group, and Raphael feels like he's the protector, like he's the big protector of the group. So that's why him and Leo sometimes butt heads, because they're both coming from a very similar place. Michelangelo will take a moment and he will look and watch and communicate. Of the four of them, he's the peacemaker,
mm,
right? That's why it's he's the right choice for the story, because again, it's because it's also in some ways it's against his nature to be this way. In some ways, right? You can see how he got there, but and but the thing is there's still a little bit of that guy in him, and that's why that book really works. Because yeah, he wants revenge, but then when he sees what else is there to fight for, it isn't just a revenge story by the time it gets to the end,
mm,
right? It's also about it. There's a little hope in it, and it's a really good. This would not work with any of the other turtles the same way. Like Raph and Leo would be very paint by numbers. You might be able to tell an interest. Like I say this, Donatello, you might be able to tell an interesting story as well, but it wouldn't be this story. This story would not be Donatello's story.
mm.
This is it, right. It's a
And that's why it pains so much, because Donatello can be kind of a wet blanket.
Well, he's not. It's not just a wet blanket, but also just he's more of an like he's a cold analytical dude. That's just
Mm,
and you need that. Like it's not that he's not empathetic, but his natural prognication is to go, okay, how do I look at this rationally? That's
mm,
not entirely a bad thing, but for him, emotionally connecting is a little more difficult than for the other three turtles,
mhm,
right? Leo and Raph just do it in a way that they're like the big brother, the father. That like if Splinter's not there, Leo's almost like the father figure, and Raphael's like the uncle figure, and that's why right. That's what they are, right?
yeah,
So that's like I said, Leo and Raph are more alike than they're different. They just do it slightly different. One comes from discipline, one comes from passion, but they both care. That's why they both. That's what they have in common. So Donatello cares too. It's just he has a tendency to be very he's by his own nature. He's just I want to figure out how this works. Him and Mike are actually similar in that regard, but the difference is one does it analytically, one does it empathetically. There's a
mm,
difference. Michelangelo's the empathetic one, Donatello is the analytical one. So they see the world, they see that their lens is slightly different, but they're ultimately coming from the same place. They're both trying to understand. But because of Donatello's analytical nature, right, the empathy comes second.
mm.
Michelangelo, the empathy comes first. And
Yeah.
that's the difference between the two of them. So I didn't think we'd start off analyzing why the Ninja Turtle family dynamic, but here we are.
Dynamic, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I have a really unpopular opinion for you. If you
sure.
want, I cannot, for the life of me, understand why people like Dragon Ball so much. I get the nostalgia part. I get that we grew up with it.
Okay.
But after trying to rewatch it, and like I rewatched the original one, okay?
Okay. Yeah, that one's hard to watch.
And then reread it, and actually that's the fun, that's the most, one of the most original, or no, not just original, creative concepts that you've seen in a long time, because it's it's not just how you say, a flexing competition on who's stronger all the time. There is actually, these things called the Dragon Balls, and you have to go on a quest about it. And the stakes are silly. The stakes are always silly, but there is some substance to the characters, as to, instead of like Dragon Ball Z, where everyone is just trying to grow stronger and actions have no consequences at all. Because my favorite one was, I watched the have you
I've seen
watched it?
I've seen the show, so
Yeah, you've seen the show.
I have my own opinion about the show. I'm actually closer to your side of the fence than I am on the other side of the fence,
Mm.
to be honest with you. But I'll tell you my reasons for it when you finish.
And the thing that I decided I cannot watch it was, one, the Frieza fight. Oh my
Oh
God,
my god, yeah, that one's terrible.
it's like, okay, Goku is like, he needs to be out in 15 minutes, and then like it's like 6 episodes later, literally nothing has happened. And Goku is still in the tank, and
No,
that's why. And I get that, and he's like, okay, I get the fact that you have to allow them to grow stronger to their to their, to their max potential, so you can, you know, crush them. But then Frieza comes back with the father in his Trunks, and Trunks just like arrives 5 minutes before Goku and just slashes Frieza and cuts through him, and he's basically out of the whole timeline, and no one is like talking about it. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'm from the future. I changed everything, but don't sweat it. I got you. I'm
oh,
like, yeah.
okay, so here's the thing. I
Yeah,
completely agree with you about the Frieza fight. I hate the Frieza fight, but
yeah.
but it's also it's the okay. So there's a couple things you got to understand, right? So I gotta ask this: when were you born?
1995.
Okay, so I was a teenager in 1995. I was a
Mm.
teenager, and Dragon Ball Z was brand new. So this is the only defense I'm going to state. I actually agree with you a lot because it Dragon Ball Z drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. It legitimately drives me nuts. But I also realize it's like, so I'm a big fan of a series called Fairy Tale. Now, Fairy
Mm.
Tale does Dragon Ball what Dragon Ball Z is supposed to do and does it better in every
Mm.
conceivable way. Now, Fairy Tale is not a perfect show, but it's a good show,
Mm.
right? Now, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. So, Dragon Ball Z is actually what it's really about. It's about family. That's what it's really about, like the camaraderie in the family of
Mm.
the group. Fairy Tale does it better. It just the right just Fairy Tale does it better because you get that whole dynamic right away. The quests are less important than the people you care about, and so Fairy Tale, like I said, it's a superior show. But Dragon Ball Z came first. Without Dragon Ball Z, there would be no Fairy Tale. So I give Dragon Ball Z that much respect, but every mistake you can possibly. So my least favorite episodes. Here's my least favorite are the what I call the power up episodes. Basically, one of the characters is grunting the whole time, and you just see them slowly grow and evolve and grow. And there's two things that come to mind when I see this: just hit him, just hit him, just go up there and punch him, just do it. Stop the growth. No, it doesn't. Never happens. It ever not ever in the series,
And
right?
it's really circumstantial. Like, how do the power up? Because in the beginning they said, okay, so super science don't exist. No one has ever watched them, and then it's like they are the rarest thing. You need to experience extreme emotional loss, or being out
Trauma,
of.
some kind of trauma. Usually some kind.
And then actually Goku becomes one, and it's not that rare anymore. And then Vegeta is like, okay, now I was angry. I am angrier. If I become the so by definition, if I become the angriest or the angstiest, I will become a Super
See,
Saiyan.
see. Here's the thing. Vegeta's the only thing I like in that show because I understand him. He's actually of all the characters, you get him. Like he's really simple to get, right? Because he's competing with Goku, and deep down, he knows Goku is better than he is, no matter what. But that's the fun. See, to me, Vegeta is Guy Gardner of the Green Lantern Corps. That's who
Yeah.
he is. That's who he is. Because Guy Gardner knows deep down Hal's better. Right? Guy knows it deep, 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 deep down. It doesn't stop Guy from trying. That's what I like about Vegeta. I'm not saying, again, it's a perfect analogy, but you can see it. That's the hilarious part. You can see it. So that's the thing. I like Vegeta. It's one of the only things I like about. I'm going to be very honest. I can't watch that show now. The abridged version, where they cut out a lot of that extraneous crap, is a better show. It focuses more on the story and the characters a little bit more. It's a little bit more of a modern sensibility in storytelling, and it works a lot better when it is that way. But even so, it's a precursor to every battle anime that's come afterwards. So I look at it as it's the show that made the formula. It's like Lord of the Rings for fantasy.
Yeah.
I don't think Lord of the Rings is. I struggle reading Lord of the Rings. I'm not saying Tolkien didn't create something great, but it's a struggle to read Lord of the Rings for me. Right, right. Now, I love The Hobbit. I think The Hobbit's the best thing he's written, my opinion. But that all said, right? I also know this, that without Tolkien, there wouldn't be any of the ones I really like afterwards. So when I look at Dragon Ball, I look at it in that regard, like from a standpoint of it needed to be there in order to get to where we are today in storytelling. Yes, it needs to be there. If it didn't exist, we wouldn't have gotten Fairy Tail or any of the other battle animes that came after it. So I'm grateful for that. Right? But if you're going to give me a choice between Fairy Tail and Dragon Ball or Bleach and Dragon Ball, I'm going to watch one of those other two over Dragon Ball any day of the week. Any day of the week. And
Oh,
Bleach drives me nuts too sometimes. Like Bleach has its moments where it drives me crazy. But at the very least, again, they understand it's about the characters. It's not about anything else. The characters make the story. And they figured this out, like they figured this out after Dragon Ball. But Dragon Ball is like they figure out, oh, we got these cool special effects, we bang whiz, and that's what Dragon Ball Z is, and that's why it drives me nuts. Like that in particular, right? No, see, that whole Frieza arc, the planet's gonna blow up in fifth. Like that whole planet's gonna blowing up. I hate that so much because that took 4 episodes. That legitimately took 4 episodes for 30 seconds, and I was like, motherfucker, I'm out. That was it. That was the end of it for me. Right there. That was there. I was done. I couldn't watch the androids. I couldn't watch. I did watch Majin Buu a little bit. I did watch it because he's both the silliest and scariest villain they've ever come up with at the same time, which is just amazing, right? But I I I couldn't get into the show after that. I was done. I was because it had no sense of pace. That's what really makes Dragon Ball Z hard to watch. There's no pace to it. It goes really fast when it wants to go really fast, and then the rest of the time it's agonizingly slow. So, right, like it hurt me how slow it was. Like I'm just being blunt. Like it made me cry, but not in the way I wanted to. It's like please hurry, please make this stop. And this is again years later. Now again, the abridged version when they cut a lot of that crap out is much better, but the original. Oh my god. No. You couldn't pay me enough. You Thanos, you'd have to give me enough alcohol to make it to last a week because that would just and I would be drunk for most of it because I'm not lying. It's painful.
No, it's I think it's what you said. It look when it came out,
Yeah.
it was ahead. It wasn't ahead of its time. It spearheaded the whole
Yeah.
fighting genre. The thing is, and that's what people lose if you raise the stakes too early, because that's what it did. It rose the
Yeah.
stakes, and this is why the original Dragon Ball is fun. The original Dragon Ball has this, so it gives you Piccolo like the embodiment of evil, but at the end of the day, it tells you that okay, Piccolo is old. He
Yep.
is old and he's trying to get the Dragon Balls to be eternally young. And you're like, okay, now I get it. Now I like I get how it works. And 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 what's most about like the name of the show is Dragon Balls.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's the main quest. And you have on the first one you have like the perfect. Do you remember the first ever wish in the anime that was in?
I do not. I'm sure you got it. Tell
Oh
me.
yeah, and that's why it shows the show is brilliant because so you have like this scheming. It's called the Pilaf saga with a scheming little alien or creature. I don't remember what it is. So he wants world domination. He's like, okay, I will collect the Dragon Balls and whatever. And when he does, and he summons the dragon, and everyone is in awe. It's just like, okay, what are we gonna do? Then the pig goes like, okay, I want to see some panties. And that's the
Yeah.
wish because that was the first thing that came. And you had a huge build up for 13 episodes that evil is going to prevail, and it is thrown off balance by a perverts. This is okay. I want panties, and this is how you establish the characters. This is how you do because it has like this perfect dynamic of it built the world and then it gives you the actual quest that okay now we know how it works. You have these not simple but direct mechanics of the world and what they can do. Then
Yeah.
Krillin dies the first time, so you have to go. No, it's not Krillin. Then a character dies and you have to power up and get the stones. And then Krillin dies again, one time and then a second time. And you get the
Krillin's the running joke of the series for like the first like two
yeah
seasons. Both Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z is kind of
yeah
like you kind of look at him and it goes, oh, okay, that's a yikes. Like, but I mean, but I mean, in like I said, it was the nature of its time, right? It
yeah.
wasn't it wasn't. And again, the original Dragon Ball series is fun. Like it is a lot of fun. Dragon Ball GT is oddly a throwback to the original series because when you make Gohan a kid again or Goku a kid again, it's like it's kind of cool.
Mm.
But yeah, no, it's looking back, modern storytelling sensibilities, it doesn't hold up. Now there is
Mhm.
things from that era that do still hold up. That is not one of them. It's just not. Like, but there are some things that do. Like, like from that era, uh Ninja Scroll is still for what it is, it's solid. You know, Fist of the North Star, which is another battle anime, is actually kind of holds up.
Yeah.
It holds up. I'm not saying it's a perfect show, but you could
Well,
watch it and be entertained by it. It doesn't feel like it has no rules. It feels like there is a structure to it. And I mean, without Fist and North Star, there's no One Punch Man, right? And
and
that's right.
there is no
So
JoJo. There is no JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's none of those things. So you have to kind of look at them from that context. Yeah, right? So I can massively respect the OG stuff, but I'm also like at that point where it's just like, nah man, I can't. There's some things I just can't do. Dragon Ball
Be-
Z is one of
No,
them.
because we had this discussion yesterday because we were sitting and talking about the comics that we all make, and we had the discussion. Okay, so what kind of manga or anime do you read? And there was a guy that says, okay, I read One Piece, and that's totally fine. For something to last for 25 years,
Yeah.
it shows consistency, it shows growth, it shows that it has a vision that knows where it's going because it has not waned in popularity. Instead, it has grown immensely, and this is because the creator knows what they want to do. But the thing is, there are so much more out there. There's so
Yeah.
much more. There are so many choices out there that you don't have to limit yourself to something that popular things tend to be fine, not just fine, usually better than fine. Tend to be really great, but don't limit yourself. It's like you can have anything. Why just
But
you're at the buffet and you're eating one thing?
you can be bad on purpose and get away with it if it's done correctly. You know what my
No.
favorite manga is right now? Spy X Family. You hate it. I
No,
don't.
I don't. I see. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. It's just that right before I discovered what Spy X Family was, I watched the Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the film.
Oh, yeah, but this is better. It's better than Mr. and
No, I
Mrs.
know
Smith.
that it's better, but it's basically I was like, okay, so I'm thinking like this is the kind of the same premise, but it's like the prequel with the child. So yeah, go ahead.
No. So, but it's silly on purpose because
Yeah.
the narration, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, there was it tried to be serious. It tried to be a
Yeah.
little serious. This doesn't even try. Like it doesn't,
Same thing
right?
with Marshall.
What?
Same thing with Marshall. Have you watched
Yeah.
it?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I can tell you the premise in one story.
Sure.
So Harry Potter, but the chosen one is just like really physically strong, has no magic. That's it.
That's cool. That could be fun.
It is, but is it there are some certain moments when you're not sure if this is a parody or if it's actually like ripping off what's popular and
So Spy X is a parody, but
yeah.
it's a parody with heart. And that's how I describe it to people. It's a parody with heart.
Mm,
Dude, it's bad on purpose because the perspective is a 5-year-old telepath that has really no grasp of what her dad or her mom are, and everybody seems to be in on the joke, but the dad and the mom, which is why it works. It's silly in the best ways, and
mm,
that's why I like it. But I mean, it's also the age of the time. Like we're at a time right now where people are looking to escape into fun things. So this
mm,
show is kind of it's the right funny bone at the right time. My favorite manga of all time is a more serious show. It's Full Metal Alchemist. I think that's a brilliant show, right?
mm,
That's an incredibly brilliant show with a lot of heart and a lot of stuff.
mm.
It's a serious show. But right this minute, my favorite show from today is the silly parody. And that's just where I'm at right now. Or you know what I mean?
No, it's a sign of our times. I was in a convention in November and I was like, okay, be honest, have you read any of the comics that I make?
I haven't read any of yours yet.
Okay, so I do a lot of my things, the things that I write have they do have growth for the
Mm-hmm.
character. It's not the easiest one, but but the characters make choices. The choices have consequences, and thus moves on. And obviously, this has a certain kind of not excitement, but things move inside.
It's got a certain tone you
Yeah,
follow, right? Right?
and yeah, and I was talking with someone who was visiting the convention and they tell me that okay, look, I'm not looking for anything that has a plot in it. I'm not looking for any action. I'm not looking for any substance is not the right word. I'm not with anything with any development. It's just something chill to to just enjoy the moment. And it struck me as weird because one, personally, I perceive stories need to have growth.
Yeah.
They need to have some kind of like even if they go full circle, because I enjoy sitcoms. I enjoy that the sitcom formula is a two-act thing that they start from here, they will go full circle, end up here to set up for the next episode. But again, it's like it's kind of I don't know at which point readers and viewers are that says like, okay, I don't want literally anything to happen. Like,
Except they tell you that they're lying. But it's not so much there has to be growth that you can't escape it, but
mm,
what you have to do to look at is okay. I'll give you a good example. Like,
mm.
did you watch Star Trek at all? Any Star Trek?
Next generation,
Okay,
big
so
fan.
next generation is actually the perfect example of this. There's not a lot, like if you look at it from the point of view of like growth, and you compare next generation to Deep Space Nine.
Mm,
Deep Space Nine has an incredible amount of growth. Like compared to Next Generation, Deep Space Nine is when it comes to growth is here. Next Generation is here. It's not even close.
mm,
But but the thing is, okay, you still have a lot of growth. Like okay, from where Captain Picard first meets Q in Encounter at Farpoint to when he meets Q at the end of the series, Picard has gone through a lot of transformations. So is Troy, Crusher, Data, LaForge. Like, they're not the same characters that started in the show. Now, they're not. There's a certain staticness to the Next Generation. You know that those 7 characters are going to live through all of their trials and tribulations, but there's growth with all of them. Worf getting dishonored and getting his family name reclaimed. Geordi LaForge becoming like chief engineer. The over like doing some of the things that he did later in the series. Riker, even without minus the beard. I mean, you could make the argument that of all the characters, Riker changed the least. You could make that argument. But even so, you still got a little bit into his past. Like the Pegasus story, like where we had that evil prick of an admiral. Fantastic character development for Will Riker. Right? It was just phenomenal. And then like I said, Crusher developed. Troy becoming a bridge officer at the end of the series. Like they gave her but there's also at the same time I can flip this on you. There's a lot of things all these characters went through that were never talked about again after that one episode. There's this one episode where LaForge was brainwashed by the Romulans to become a killer. Like today, knowing what we know about the human mind, that would be majorly damaging, and that would take a long time to get over. But after that episode, you never hear about it again. And I mean, but that was the nature of that was the nature of television back then, right? There was a certain degree of, it was that fine balance between, okay, these are the familiar characters you love, but they're not the same characters when the series is over. None of them are. You don't you have to, you can slow down the progression, you know what I mean? But you can't stop it completely, and change is inevitable. So I would look at like what people are looking for right now are escapes. But even in those escapes, okay, Spy X Family, Yor and Lloyd are changing. Those quote unquote fake feelings are slowly becoming more real, right? They're not the same people that started with in the very, very first, when they first met. But at the same time, they're still goofballs. There's that balance. Like there's still a little bit of that, what drew people into the show to begin with. So there's a little bit of there's a balancing act that kind of has to be done right now. But that's going to change too. Tomorrow, what I tell people about telling stories right now is you got to tell your stories. Like, what do you give a shit about? And the beautiful thing about today, like today's time, especially right now, is even if your story doesn't hit right this minute when you release it, you have this ability years later. It's like, okay, Thanos, you get let's say you get 4 or 5 books down the road, you got 4 or 5 trades of different things you've done, right? Someone will go back and read something you read at the very beginning and go, holy shit, this is amazing crap. And you're gonna be like, I wrote this years ago. Right, and that's what you're gonna be in your head, but you're gonna be like, "Oh, thank you very much." But you're gonna sit in reality. It's like, why did it hit now? You're not gonna understand it. So, right, that's how it works. We live in this world today now where it may not be a hit today, but it could be a hit tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like we grow as people, and yeah, I don't like self-referencing, but it's like I rarely read what I wrote before. It's like once I'm done, I'm done. I move on. It's on to the next one. And it's like I was going through some back issues from with Loudmouse Crew, and we were giving them out, and then someone came to me and says, "This is amazing." Which was like one of the first 12-page stories that I wrote in Greek. And when I read it, I actually said that, okay, yeah, it actually hits home. It covers all the bases. I didn't know what I was doing, but because I was writing something real, something from my life and experiences, it hit home. And And that's what happens when you go back and you write, because one of the greatest headaches that a person taught me when I was writing all that is, all right, you have to condense it in one sentence. You have to be able to say what it's about in one sentence. And if you cannot, you haven't found the story. And this in the whole Alan Moore discussion, plot is different than the story.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I have a novel in with an agent right now.
Mm-hmm.
So the story is about a reformed night witch trying to kill evil versions of the Knights of the Round.
All right.
That one sentence, very simple, right? Now the plot of the story is a little bit more convoluted, but that's her whole premise. She goes from world to world, finding these evil versions of the knights, and she's trying to kill them all.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Her reasons are a little bit of revenge, a little bit of redemption, a little bit of personal redemption as well, and a few other things that come up along the way too. And what I realize is, but again, if I don't have that first sentence nailed down, and as simple as that sounds, like, hey, a night witch killing evil versions of the Knights of the Round, it's really simple, but you have to have it, because if you can't break down your story into some very specific points, you don't understand your story.
Yeah. Because whether you want it or not, you will be putting not just not fragments, but parts of yourself in it. Like for me, it's simple. Dreamlands, World Walkers. The
Okay.
main character has to decide what's true, what I know to be true, or what the world around me believes to be true.
Ah.
And there you have a conflict. There you have a character doubting themselves and going like, so not to go into much detail, but the whole idea is that there's a dragon, because it's the Dark Fantasy one, and that dragon has completed a quest that no one else in the history of dragons has completed. So he's immediately given legendary status. As soon as he completes it, they're like, somehow you did it. Somehow you did it, so you're in a legendary status. And he's like, okay, yeah, but why has everyone moved away from what we know to be true as dragons and what I know to be true? So now you have this character that says, well, if I have become legend, I must have done something correct. I didn't do it by mistake. I do it because I am me and I have certain experiences, certain stimuli, certain beliefs that have driven me to reach this, not ascendance, but this achievement. But now the entire world goes like, but we believe something else to be different. So now you have these two forces coming together, and they will crash.
So that's an interesting, because again, I the biggest truth about our time I've noticed is that there is no what I call moral authority anymore.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is there's no standard for truth anywhere, or integrity anywhere. If you're looking from it from a point of view of a government or a company, or no, it is completely, they all live by the truth of the moment. What is actually truth doesn't exist anymore. And as such, like, this struggle you're talking about is becoming a much more regular thing now, because I can't trust anything that's supposedly above me,
Mm.
which I think is a very fundamental flaw in society right now. I don't know outside of force what would keep people in line. There has to be something, but that's the thing. Like, that in there, that drive to, there's got to be something out there, right? That's real and true, right? That's pushing against this, whatever this is now today. And that's the as I've gotten older, I've realized that I have to be a lot more self-reliant. If I want to find the truth about something, I have to look myself, and if I because no one's going to give it to me, and I have to accept the fact that even in so doing, I could be wrong. and that's a very self-reflective answer,
Mm.
but it's the only answer I could give anybody today.
But like Joshua, that's the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, whether we and I think you can tell it by yourself, whether we write something that others can relate, we write something for ourselves first, not to satisfy some ego thing, but we have things inside us that are bottling up, that are plumbing up the space. This is the joke we make with Stelios, the main artist, that if we don't put it out of here, if we don't put it out of inside us, the reason it's gonna get too much room, and we need
Yes.
to get on paper, so we can have stories for more, because one way or another, giving it form, giving it substance, communicating it, it has this idea that, okay, this is how I perceive it, this is what this issue means for me, and now you will be moving on.
So I would go one step further than that. I think we all want to be understood. Like honestly, when it comes right down to it, we are seeking our own understanding of who we are in the moment.
Mm.
Okay, my Night Witch story, right? It's not just a revenge story. Like the part of myself that's really in there, there's a part. I'm 42, single, and one of the things that I mean, I'm just being very real and honest with you, is will I find somebody? I don't know. It's a legitimate question, and if I found somebody, would I know what to do with it?
Mm.
Right? And this is a very, I think, human fear, right?
No.
This is a very it's a very human fear, and that's real. Like that part is something all of us can understand. That's a part of me that comes out in the story a lot, and I think that's the human element. What I've learned is the plot is a way for us to build the mechanism to tell the things we care about out. That's what the plot actually is. So, and it can be anything. Like you can put anything in the plot you want. It doesn't matter. What matters is, okay, what do you care about in this moment? I think, and as a result of this, I also think every story has a time limit, right? There's a time limit to tell it because we change as people. I'm not saying
Correct.
there's I'm not saying there aren't things that we won't always care about, but we see them differently at different points of our lives too. So that's something that I've come again, something else I've come to terms with. So if I really feel the need to tell something, it's not just that it's so big, but it's important now because I might not care about it the same way tomorrow.
Exactly, because that's the main question everyone asks TikTok, the main character, is that, what do you want?
Mhm.
What do you want? Like, tell me what you want. And as soon as he tells them, he gets different answers. He says, okay, you have achieved that. Now what? What do you like? You're ready to move on. And this is how some of us feel. Okay. We are moving on in life. Like, what do we want now? And then he says, like, okay, I want to raise an army. I want to change the world to my image. And in response he gets, he's like, you get yourself, you get what you can do, but you don't really understand the world.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, it's questions we ask ourselves. We don't just project them, we give them form, because projection is like, it can be it can be a snarky comment, it can be a deflection, it can be, but actually mapping it out in a graphic novel gives you the time to slowly pace and understand everything.
It's not only that, it's giving, in an odd way, it's giving truth to the form, is
Yeah,
what you're actually doing. It's ironic. Like fiction is fiction, it's not real in the sense that it's true, but in its construct you can actually bring out very real things that people can understand. That's what makes storytelling awesome, is it's our way to understand each other. And whether it's a graphic novel or whatever the case may be, right? You have this tendency to like, um you have this tendency to learn what matters to you when you construct it. And the people that find your work are people trying to find. I think I think it's an amazing thing that when you write a story, that sometimes the people that find it are people just like you, looking, if not looking for the same answers, or at least asking the same questions. And silence.
I mean, we're not exactly discussing easy things, are we? As
No,
uh,
no, it's not. But I mean,
it's like grab for you. It's five. It's like 6 in the morning. We grab storytelling from the problem. And it's like, okay, tell me your secrets. What do I put my? What do I get from putting myself into you? Not in a
well,
bad way.
again, you get your own understanding too. Like when you write, this took me a long time to figure out. Like this
Mm,
took me a really long time to figure out. Is that when I write a story, it doesn't matter what kind of story I'm writing. I'm telling my story to some degree as well. I can't help it. Parts of the story are coming from me, right? And so it gets really interesting too because it gets like here's the thing, right? I think a lot of authors are always looking for that hit, but a deeper question becomes then, okay, you find that hit, okay?
mm,
So you find
yeah.
that hit, okay, you're not going to be that same person after you tell that story.
Mm,
So your role becomes very different in that moment too, because now it's no longer just about you, it's about your fans. Let's be honest, like, okay, we mentioned Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, okay? And I'm not saying like this is Kevin Eastman is, I know this for a fact. He's grateful for his success. He's not on but is he connected to it the same way he was connected to it when he first created it? No, he's not. Like that would I don't think anybody is. But there's also a little bit of, okay, people really like this. And I suddenly now, like, as I've gotten older, I've gotten a lot more sympathetic to one hit wonders because I realized something very important. It gives, hey, if I'm telling the exact same story over and over and over again, but it's making people, hey, you're cringing. But think about it the other way too. You're making a lot of people happy at the same when you do it. Is that a terrible thing?
it's okay. So I have a theory, and I think you can back me up on this one.
Yeah.
If you find your stride, especially in writing, if you find it's usually hard to go to change the form. If you find what you want to say, how you want to say it, and go on with it, it will stick. But you don't really you start thinking of this like production workflow. You understand what I'm saying? If like for me, I know how I write because I've been writing as me for a long time,
Yeah.
and I know how I want my stories to begin and finish. And it's really hard to not just to try new things
Yeah.
because you're thinking in that mindset, and it's not limiting, but it's not exactly liberating either. You have to there's nothing wrong with telling the same stories every time in different format or changing key aspects, but you also have to be able to maneuver
Yeah.
because like you said, you're not the same person you're not the same person to tell the same story from the same perspective. And I think I love Outcast. Okay, and I will give Andrew 3000's example. He was like he. Do you know he recently in 2023 he released an album that he was just playing flute. Now Andrew 3000 is one of the best lyricists of our era. I will say to not over exaggerate. Okay,
Okay, okay, sure.
but now as he's reaching 50, he says, okay, I like art. I like steering the emotions, but I have nothing to say to be relevant at this point. So I would much rather progress than go back to what I know.
It's
Mm,
a it's an interesting catch, right?
mm,
Because this is why when like, okay, I wrote like my novels in urban fantasy.
mm,
That's what it is. If it goes really well, I'll be doing urban fantasy for the foreseeable future.
mm.
right? Now I can do it. I have lots of imagination. I can have a lot of fun in this space and do it. But I'm also realizing that if I'm gonna scratch my creative itches that are different than this, let's say this goes really well,
Mm.
then I'm gonna have to come to terms with the business of what I may be doing versus I might have to be balancing that. It's like, okay, my audience likes this, but I want to do this,
Mm.
right? And so sometimes the audience is going to win, and sometimes I'm going to win,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, right. Sometimes, and from a business standpoint, I'm ready for that. But I also
Mm.
I under like that. I understand. I'm a big. I don't know if you've ever read him. Have you ever read Terry Pratchett?
Yep.
I love Terry Pratchett. I love
Mm.
him. He's great, right? But let's be honest. He went back to Rincewind after the first two books. He didn't go back to Rincewind because he wanted to. Let's be very honest about it. He'd rather do Night Watch or Granny Weatherwax or Mort or somebody else,
Yeah.
right? But every once in a while, he went back to Rincewind. Why? Because that's what got him to the dance, right? So every once in a while, he's like, okay, fine, I'll do a Rincewind, blah blah blah, mumble mumble. But I want to do a Granny Weatherwax afterwards. By
Mm.
the way, personal opinion, Granny Weatherwax and the Night Watch are like the best stuff in Discworld. I like Death. Death is awesome, but I
Mm.
like him, right? But I'm gonna be honest. I'm not crazy about the Windswind books, but I understand why he did them. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I know, I know. Like for me, my first exposure to Terry Pratchett was the Amazing Maurice and His Educated Rodents, which
That's
I wrote
awesome.
exactly like I wrote. I read it when I was 14, 13. I
Yep.
think it's like the perfect age to read it, and still to this day, like when because I was also talking about the when you have like the quote that are you ready to die for the clown, and then Darkton goes like, no, but I'm ready to kill for the clown. I'm like, shit, he did it like perfectly. And some vines is amazing in all of the stories. Night Watch, and but for me also soul music. I think soul music won my
It's
heart.
really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. I like soul
It-
music.
on how Terry Pratchett could write um young adults in no, young adults as like teenagers that actually have something to some room to grow, and this is why I
Yeah.
love good movies.
No, I mean, going back to something you care about, like something you care about things changing. And like
Mm,
this is something like I picked up with you doing like when we've talked every so often.
mm,
You don't want the same old shit every single time because much like the rest of the world, you're sick to death of it, right? That
mm,
like that I get it. The only thing I would tell you, the only thing I tell everybody is understand why the shit still sings because that way you can use it to change the world, right?
yeah.
That's the thing, right? I don't say that because look look man, I love when people take big chances. I love it. It's so one of my favorite bands from my adulting days is the Linkin Park.
Mm,
But my favorite album of theirs is A Thousand Suns.
okay,
Right?
okay.
It's not their typical stuff. Right?
Hmm.
They tried something very different, and that's why I like it so much. It's not, in my opinion, the one they did afterwards, the one that they went back to, the hunting one, right? I think it's called the right. That's a better album, and it's more close to what they normally do. But I love that they took the chances they did in Thousand Suns.
Do something new.
Do something new, and I love that part of it. But again, there's a balance in the creative world. You have if you become successful, the thing you have to understand is people are going to want the same thing when you find whatever that is.
Mm,
People are going to want more of that. That's not a crime in and of itself. right? The challenge then you have to have is, okay, where can I carve a space for me
Yeah.
in that success?
And it's not a crime. It's a shame to judge someone, to judge all the creative outputs that someone has on under the lens of one.
Mm-hmm. I agree, but but the thing is, the thing that a lot of publishers like. Okay, there are so many authors. I mean, like there's even so many comic book people. Okay, let's be
Mm.
honest. They get caught. Okay, all right. Ultimate Spider-Man, for example. Okay, yeah, it's still Spider-Man. No matter what Jonathan Hickman adds to it, it's still Spider-Man. It's not going to change. Peter Parker's still going to be Peter Parker. It's never ever going to be different. But here's the thing: there's two parts to that. The first is there's something universally appealing about Peter Parker, and we'd be less than honest if we saw it any other way. So then the thing you got to look at is, okay, why is he always enduring? Now I know the answer to that question myself, but I also realize that people have it. But again, everybody has their own take on that. So
Mm.
sometimes you're put in a position, and when you become successful, like I told you, like Terry Pratchett had to do Rincewind once in a while. I don't think he really wanted to after a certain point, but that's what got him to the dance. And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard, especially like with any kind of hit, like whatever makes a hit. It's hard to quantify why that hit's a hit very often. So a lot of times they encourage you to repeat that hit because they know it works. I know I know it's not a perfect science, but that's why a lot of authors end up writing the exact same kind of stories. It's not because they can't write others, but this is what got them to the dance. There's lots of like Conan Doyle in Sherlock Holmes. He hated Holmes at the end. You could tell just how he wrote him at the end. He was looking for any he killed him, and they
Mm.
made him bring him back. Right? He hated Holmes. He hated him. And you could tell that's hell for a writer. Like that's hell for a creative. So I make it a very conscious point. So this is where I'm saying though is whatever whatever tell the stories you really want to tell, because
Mm.
right, if you do find the hit, you're going to be telling at least some version of that story again. That's
Yeah.
okay, at least, right? And you know what I mean, at least that's the business end of this, if that makes sense.
Hard. Hard because you see, it's you're trying. I make comics with the same. I have been making comics with the same person for like 3 years now. We've spent nights together. We went to conventions together. We spent a lot of time. We know what makes each other tick. Okay,
Hmm.
storytelling, not just storytelling wise. I can tell you when say what stage would like to eat or what kind of beer he drinks. This for another time. But the thing is, we know the topics that each one wants to explore, and then we actually question each other because it says, okay, why do you feel that we have to go back to this model? And we push ourselves to
Sure.
not you cannot avoid your shadow. You can never be torn from your shadow. You can give it other shapes, and
I like that.
it will remain your shadow. It will remain yours, but you can give it other shapes.
Yeah.
I it I like this metaphor.
Oh, it's a really good metaphor. I like it too, actually.
Yeah, because I wasn't thinking that I would say something. I'm not gonna say profound, but something that has meaning. But yeah, it actually makes sense to me because that's we will I will always be writing about memory. I will always be writing about death in just different forms. I like comedy. I like
Yeah,
I like noir. I like crime fiction. I can give it different shapes, but at the end of the day, it will be my shadow.
yeah. No, it's true. And
I'm
no,
so
no, I actually, dude, that might be one of the most profound things I've ever heard on the show. Like seriously,
mm,
it's well thought out.
mm,
So
didn't know I had it in me really.
no, it's no. I honestly, that's a good way of looking at it. Like, I think the lesson here, just in this conversation to anyone listening to this, whatever you choose to create, love it.
Mm,
And don't be, and because again, you may have to do it again. If you, especially like, that's what success does look like. A publisher is gonna look at you and go, hey, can you do something like this again? Right? And that's okay if you love it. So make sure you love it because, right? Because here's the thing, you want to be Kevin Eastman. You do not want to be Arthur Conan Doyle.
mm. Okay.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm sorry. I'm just making sure. I'm just making sure. I'm giving you that space to breathe and respond. Right. So
I like how people can take you. You don't want to be Arthur Conan Doyle in so many senses. It's like,
yeah,
but I understand that because a few people know that he hated home.
yeah,
Like a few people know, and this is what we were talking about as well. Because,
yeah.
for example, we were talking about the mangaka work condition. It's like people love, they love their characters, but they don't really understand the process that it takes to write, to illustrate, to edit, to create a chapter. And they're like, okay, they spend 3 seconds going through the chapter and like, okay, next week, when is it coming? It's inhuman. These are inhuman conditions that you're asked to produce. So obviously there's gonna be a decline in quality or whatever.
Well, I don't. It's not necessarily. Again, I don't think it's necessarily a decline in quality. It depends on how you look at it. I think technically you get better with every story you write,
Mm,
but
yeah.
your emotional investment in the characters change because okay, let's say okay, this is the thing. You say everything there is to say about a character, you still might be called upon to do something. Like a modern example of that to some degree is I love Jim Butcher. I love the Harry Dresden series.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yep.
love it. He said everything he was to say about the character a long time ago, but people love the character.
Mm,
So to Butcher's credit, and I say this to his credit, and I could make Rachel Morgan for Kim Harrison's another good example of this, right? You find they had to figure out what to say about the character that connects to them. But after a certain point, like I remember one time a Hollywood guy, I can't remember which one said this. All sequels are fan service,
yeah.
and and you know what, but that's okay. Like here's the thing, if that's the case, okay, if all sequels are fan service, then then it's a different thing. Then you know what they want. You built what they wanted already. So now it's just like, how can I give these characters another spin and another ride? And that's okay. That's totally fine. Then the challenge you have in that situation is, and it's a challenge we all want to get to at some point. I mean, that's if we want to be successful. Let's be honest, right? Okay, how can I make it fun for me while I'm
Mm,
doing this? And that is, I think, the whole of the secret, right? If you can do that, then you're good. I like I told you. Then what you do is in between rounds, in between sequels, you go create something else
yeah.
every so often, right? And then that's what you do, and you kind of let that go. I'm reading Demons of the Shadow Realm. That's the Full Metal Alchemist creator's new manga right now.
Mm.
It's not as good as Full Metal, at least not yet. It doesn't quite have the same immediacy and connection, which I've only
Mm,
read 3 volumes so far,
okay.
right? I could see it getting there. If given enough time, it might get there. We'll see, right? But
I
it's not
think
the
it
same,
can.
right?
And what's even worse than a sequel?
A prequel?
Yeah, always a prequel. Like I think you can go successful with a sequel. I don't think it's that rare anymore.
Yep.
I think I can count the cases on the fingers of one hand where you can on one hand where you can go successful with a prequel.
Do you know what makes a prequel hard?
What?
Tension. It's harder to create tension with a prequel because people know what happens.
Mm, mm,
That's the hard part, right? So, okay, I'm going to use this is not the greatest example, but that's the one of the most common ones. The Star Wars prequels. They're terrible, right? They, like, I'm being very honest. They're terrible, but they're terrible for a bunch of reasons, right? The biggest challenge George Lucas had is okay. Anakin Skywalker is going to become Darth Vader,
how?
right? That's the story. How does he do it? How do you make this character this way? Now, on a personal note, I wouldn't have done it that way. It was a terrible. There were a lot of things I would have done differently. We'll just leave it at that. But because again, if we're talking about personal connection, I think the biggest mistake that was made about Anakin was there was never a moment in the series I liked him.
That's what the Clone Wars did right. They gave you an Anakin to like.
But the cartoon,
Yeah.
yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. No, that Anakin's likable.
Yeah.
A shame they never showed that in the movies.
Because they never had the room because you see.
I disagree, but we'll talk about it. Go, you go.
No, I understand. There's always the room to show things if you want. If this is your goal, if you side quested to establish 5 other characters, then it loses all meaning. I the Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah, yeah, it
I'm not
hurts,
afraid
right?
to, I'm not afraid to admit that I love Revenge of the Sith.
I don't mind it, but I'll tell you what. But okay. So let me put it like this: I love the Emperor in Revenge of the Sith,
Yeah.
but that is a credit to the actor, I think, more than the script, because the actor was embraced it, and you had a blast doing it. So I was like, you know what? He's all in. I don't know about the rest of these guys, but he's all in. So this is fun. And that's the cool thing about like he was all in. He cowered when Yoda threw him across the room. You just saw his reactions were kind of over the top, but he was in, and you could feel it, right? When he was winning and he was being the evilest bastard on the planet, you felt it. You just felt because, and that's a credit to the actor because the actor went all in. I think this is just my opinion. I think the biggest mistake of the trilogy is you never really got to see the bonding moments between Anakin and Obi-Wan. Because if you had gotten to see them bond,
Mm,
that would have done so much for his turn.
yeah.
Because it would have accomplished 2 things that was never accomplished. Now in the cartoon, yes, but in the movies, no. Because because if the second movie had just been a quest between like some kind of quest which is Obi-Wan and Anakin doing something together, and there's no like you don't have a lot of the outside stuff because you don't
Mm,
need a lot of the outside stuff, and just focus on them working together to win, how they're there for each other, right? That would have done so much for both characters. Then you throw them into the rest of the crazy whatever the fuck's going on in the big Uber story, right? Right? It would have meant so much more, right? Because the real story in the prequel should have been,
Mm-hmm.
okay, okay, when Anakin falls, the impact on the relationships he established.
Because technically, like they have the potential to be brothers. They could,
Yeah,
because one of them was the firstborn that the father had trained, and then the second one was that, well, he's the hope of the universe, and
yeah,
not even like you, when he says you were the chosen one, says that you were. It wasn't that you were the chosen one for everyone. Mace Windu died for you, not Mace Windu, sorry. Qui-Gon Jinn died for you, and he was my father figure. So that would automatically mean that he gave his life for naught. And yeah, there could have been smaller details that could
yeah,
refine.
yeah, because that's what was missing,
Mm,
right? Because if you have those, when he turns, it's tragic.
mm.
Instead, I laughed, and I shouldn't be laughing, but I laughed, right? That's the difference. That is the whole difference, right? Um, there are things I like in the original trilogy. Like I actually, okay, this is my favorite scene in my favorite whole thing in the first trilogy is the pod race. That was amazing. The whole actual race was right.
The opening of the third movie.
Okay, you like that? I
Uh,
was
no, because you see, Revenge of the Sith came out in 2005, right?
yeah,
I was 10 years old. It was the
uh,
coolest thing. Like as soon as like it swoops in and you're into like this amazing spaceship bombardment kind of scene, it's like, yes, this gives me a fulfillment I didn't know why I needed, but now I shall embrace it.
yeah. For me, that was the original Star Wars back when I was a kid.
Mm.
Like but the first, like the original trilogy, New Hope, the all the way to Return of the Jedi is kind of meh, but New Hope and Empire Strikes Back are amazing. They are
Yeah.
incredibly good movies. Um, Empire is still the best Star Wars movie, right?
Mm.
It's still the best one,
Yeah,
and
the one with Wolf and everything. So
yeah,
great.
the one because it's so good. I and here's my other controversial opinion. I like the Last Jedi. I
I
I,
haven't
I what are you gonna say?
I haven't watched it. I went to watch the Force Awakens
Yep.
and didn't do it. I didn't want to go back for any of the other.
I can understand that. To me, it was a soft reboot. That's what Force Awakens was. It was a soft reboot to the series. It was okay. I don't think it was bad, but it was okay.
Mm,
This is just it was okay. Last Jedi, I think is a good movie. It was
mm,
an inch. I think it was an inch close from being great, but the misstep they made cost them the rest of the series because they made one very crucial mistake, I think, in my opinion, and in that I think that kind of made the movie kind of made the movie go limp. Uh,
mm.
right. The last one, Rise of the Skywalker, that first hour is unwatchable. It is legitimately unwatchable. It is a train wreck, right? It is a legitimate train wreck all the way through. It's just like that hurt me to watch. That hurt me to like it. Literally, it's that terrible, right?
Now,
So
now you see. Now I'm intrigued to watch it. You had me at not the Rise of the Skywalker, but the Last Jedi.
no, Last Jedi. It's because it does such a. They do a very interesting trick halfway through the movie. I'm not going to spoil it since you haven't seen it, and it was clever. the follow through, in my opinion, was short by this much,
Mm,
and that much was the difference. Like that was the honest, like that's my honest opinion. Like there are some legitimately brilliant moments in that movie.
mm.
There are some failures. I think there are some missteps for sure, but it's one of those things where I think I will. We were talking about going for something new. Last Jedi, I think, made an honest attempt at both honoring what came before, but actually trying something new.
Yeah. And
And I
like we
think,
said, we
it,
accept.
yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. That's if you want to go back. If you want now, if you go to me after you watch it, I don't like it. I will understand. It's
Mm,
not again. There's a reason it's so polarizing, but yeah, the third movie's unwatchable.
okay.
If you want to watch the third movie, I will wish you the absolute best of luck. I watched it once and I was like, I'm done. I'm just like
Done.
I can't. Yeah, I'm done. And it's like I can't do it. I haven't touched a single Star Wars spin-off since. I just like I'm done. Like I'm done. Like this is it for me, right? And I don't knock. And this, by the way, I will say this: the one thing they do right, I will say this about the last trilogy is the one thing they do right. I like all the characters I'm supposed to like. I hate all the
Mm,
characters I'm supposed to hate.
okay.
That part they do right. And I think to the actors and the new actors and actresses, I thought they did a wonderful job with what they were given. I just think I think Disney tried. I think Disney played it too safe at the end. At the end of the day, that's my opinion.
It's yeah, it's a whole different discussion
Yeah, no,
about.
that's the thing. I like we've already talked for nearly 90 minutes, so I'm just like, yeah, that's another discussion for another day. But I will say this: yeah, you should try Last Jedi.
Mm,
You
I will.
might, yeah, you try Last Jedi, and again, I'm not going to promise you'll like it. That I won't make you that promise. But what I will say is, I like there are but it is probably the best and worst of Star Wars all in the same movie. Well, Rise of the Skywalker might be the worst of Star Wars, but you know what I mean. It's got all the flaws, but the attempts at trying something new, I really admire that movie.
Mm,
I will say, it was an interesting trick they did halfway through. I was like, that was interesting. I'm glad you did that. And the end of the movie is like I actually popped a little bit at the end of the movie because I actually was like, okay,
I
that was
see.
good,
Yeah.
right? I popped like, well done, you got me.
Mm.
I admit it, you got me right there.
Right.
So, all right, Mr. Thanos, I think we have an interview here.
I think we do.
Before we wrap up, you got a Kickstarter coming up, don't you? Or
I do. I do have a Kickstarter. Do you mind if I show
go
promo codes?
ahead. No, good. That's why you're here, man.
So we have Dreamlands number one. In Dreamlands number one, we there is in the world of Dreamlands there's only one human left, and all the stories of a dead world left behind. And he starts collecting everything to create the world's ultimate book. And when he does, something happens, and shablam, Dreamlands number two. Now, Dreamlands number two was published last year. It's a full-fledged volume, has everything you want in it. It's the direct sequel of the Dreamland series. It doesn't do justice, but I will send you pictures and everything, the camera here. And
Yeah.
now we have the big boy, as you can see.
Oh wow.
Yeah, here it is. It's called Dreamland's World Walkers, and
Nice.
it follows the story of Tiktokta, a dragon general that has managed to complete an impossible task, and and along with his prowess as a warrior, he has incredible magic. Think of it like God of War meeting Berserk and Sandman in a very chaotic.
Interesting
Yeah,
mix there. Okay.
because the idea is that he has this amazing power, but he is a warrior. He's a warrior. He has a vision. He wants to lead his people through stories and what he knows to be real, but he's always challenged by others because in these two books you have a world building, a world where the dragons, the giants, and the dwarves are all coming together and they are changing their ways and they are learning. But now comes an amazing warrior that says, what if this is wrong? What if okay, yes, we have grown some, but this is not what we're supposed to do. We are supposed to be out here conquesting and we have sacrificed, we have lost too much to gain some mere understanding of others. So now you have an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object.
Nice.
Going to be conflict.
Yeah, it sounds really cool, man. You got a Kickstarter page up?
I do have a Kickstarter page up. Currently is in pre-launch. I'm not sure when this episode will be airing, but official date for Kickstarter will be Saturday, 9 of June, 9 of March, sorry. And we already have 110 people subscribed for it. And
So
we're building.
so why don't you give me the link right
Yep,
here, right now? Give me the link
right
right here,
here,
right.
right.
Give it into the chat so I can actually copy and paste it onto the actual Twitch screen here.
Mhm. Just give me a second.
No worries. Ladies and gentlemen, we are trained professionals, or something to that effect anyway. By the way, honestly though, I will say this. Dude, that's an amazing what you got there. That's an incredible accomplishment.
Thank you. It's down the line because I had some time, struggling with whether we will continue, whether we're not. And when you get the book printed and everything, it's always worth it. Here you
Yeah,
go.
no. Oh, all right. So here we go. I'm going to do this. I do the magical control C right there, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on a second here as my Discord decided to pop up right when it was inconvenient. There it goes. It's up on the screen right now for anybody that is watching. And if you are listening to this, which if you are listening to this, it'll probably be the week of March 12th or 13th. It'll be available. I can talk to the boss of the podcast. He is a bit of an asshole sometimes. Just ask Thanos; he knows him very well. But I talk him into bringing stuff out a little earlier than normal, and so I'll make sure it's available while the campaign's up. So, guys, check it out. As you can see, Thanos, in all the conversations I've had with Thanos, he is very passionate about what he does, and honestly, cares about his craft. If you haven't listened to any of our chats in the past, you can listen to it now, here or any of the previous ones. We talk craft all the time because he cares, right?
Mm.
Right, and that is something. So that whatever he's going to create, right, it's going to be something that he really, really wants to put his own stamp of approval on. And if he cares this much, it's going to be an amazing book.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that is everything, ladies and gentlemen. I got a wild week of stuff ahead. I got a great guest on Tuesday. I got a great guest on Wednesday. I may have a cool guest on Friday. We will see. I'm working on that as we speak right now. So my next guest will be the inevitable Rodney Fike. We'll probably talk flip off for the first time in like a few weeks. So for everybody watching, everybody listening, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I'm glad anyone that heard this now, thanks for coming and stopping by in the morning. Everybody else, I'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. All right, let's hit the magic button here.